Headlights stutter across wet asphalt as the car swerves too late, metal screaming into darkness before the world snaps sideways. The radio keeps talking, cheerful, wrong, uninterrupted. The impact finishes before she understands it happened, airbags exploding like blunt fists. Somewhere nearby, another vehicle sits crushed and silent, its hazards blinking patiently. She stumbles toward the other wreck, shoes slipping, breath tearing at her throat. The radio voice echoes in her head, urging listeners to look up tonight. Inside the second car, two adults lie motionless, faces slack, bodies folded wrong. She steps back, horror blooming too fast to name. Sirens begin to rise in the distance, thin and accusing. She turns away, hands shaking, and the sky above seems brighter than it should be. Floodlights replace moonlight as officers pull her aside, voices clipped, efficient. The world contracts to cold cuffs and the smell of rain on oil. Concrete walls swallow sound as a door slams shut. She sits alone, replaying the moment she chose to look away from the road. Time skips forward without asking permission. News screens glow everywhere, showing a second planet hovering impossibly close in the sky. They say the planet mirrors continents, oceans, lights at night. No one explains how it arrived, only that it watches back. Released years later, she steps into daylight thinner, quieter, unrecognized. Her father waits nearby, pretending not to stare. Home feels borrowed, every room belonging to someone she no longer is. Through the window, the second planet hangs enormous and unavoidable. She drags a mattress into the attic, choosing low beams and dust over memories downstairs. The ceiling presses close, honest in its confinement. At an employment office, a clerk scans her record and looks away too slowly. Silence stretches as options quietly disappear. She asks for work that requires no talking, no explaining. The suggestion offered back feels like punishment disguised as routine. Her new job leads her through halls she once rushed through with purpose. Now she pushes a cart, head down, echoes following. The date gnaws at her until she drives back to the stretch of road she avoids in sleep. The turnout looks smaller than memory allowed. A man parks nearby and steps out, older, bent, carrying something small. Recognition hits her harder than the crash ever did. He leaves without looking back. She stays frozen, realizing survival was unevenly distributed that night. At home, she searches records until the truth sharpens. He lived, lost everything else, and never came back to himself. Snow begins to fall outside his address as she stands across the street, unsure which step would be more dangerous, forward or away. She steps into the snow and keeps walking until the cold steals sensation from her feet. The house behind the window stays dark, indifferent. Clothes drop behind her one by one, markers of intent she refuses to name. The sky above feels close, swollen with reflected light. She lies down and waits for the cold to finish the argument. The second planet glows overhead, perfectly still. Darkness cuts in abruptly, replaced by the antiseptic brightness of survival. Someone chose for her when she would not. Bandaged fingers throb as she stares at the ceiling, angry at breath returning. Guilt survives hypothermia easily. Back in the attic, she opens her laptop and finally writes. Words spill out like a confession disguised as logic. She submits the essay and feels lighter, briefly untethered. The second planet remains, unimpressed by effort. At a grocery aisle, a familiar voice stops her cold. The past steps casually into fluorescent light. The man from before smiles too quickly, introduces a stranger at his side. She nods, suddenly aware of her uniform. She leaves without buying anything, cheeks burning. Outside, the mirrored sky feels accusatory. Apology becomes an obsession she can't silence. By nightfall, she's back at the quiet house she failed to enter before. She panics and invents a role, offering cleaning instead of truth. The door opens, and the lie steps inside. The interior smells of dust and neglect. A man with hollow eyes watches without speaking. She cleans carefully, afraid of touching memories. A telescope in the corner catches her attention despite herself. He allows her to return the following week. Relief feels undeserved, which somehow makes it easier to accept. Weeks pass in repetition, each visit another delay. Silence grows familiar, almost safe. A televised broadcast interrupts the routine. Scientists finally receive a voice from the second planet. The speaker is identical to the scientist on screen, down to scars and dates. The world exhales in disbelief. Debate erupts overnight. Mirror or invasion, miracle or threat, no one agrees on the cost. She finds herself back at the telescope with him, sharing silence that finally breaks. The sky becomes common ground. Games, conversations, late rides home follow. Comfort arrives disguised as coincidence. She mentions the essay at last. He dismisses the mission as dangerous fantasy. A sweater emerges from the wash, triggering something sharp and immediate. His anger fills the room without warning. She leaves shaken, the lie heavier than before. Outside, radio voices warn of mirrored weapons and mirrored intent. His car appears at her home days later. He apologizes without explanation and insists she follow. He leads her to an empty auditorium and fills it with sound drawn from metal and breath. The music feels raw, unguarded. They return to his house changed by the intimacy of sound. Boundaries blur without being named. Later, he speaks of the crash from his side, the coma, the waking alone. She listens, silent, breaking internally. The phone rings at home, cutting through exhaustion. A private voice congratulates her. She's been selected for the flight. The opportunity feels like a verdict, not a prize. She tells him, expecting relief. He asks her to stay instead, offering a future she doesn't believe she deserves. Fear sharpens into resolve. She finally speaks the truth she's rehearsed for months. He doesn't shout or strike. He simply tells her to leave, voice emptied of everything else. Reporters swarm her house by morning, dredging the past for spectacle. Her father pulls her inside, shielding without words. The official ticket arrives, heavy in her hands. Departure becomes unavoidable. A scientist on television proposes a theory: divergence began the moment the planets noticed each other. Lives bent slightly, then sharply. Hope reforms into something dangerous. She believes another version of herself might have chosen differently. She runs to his house with the ticket, pounding until her hands ache. No answer comes. Refusal hardens into determination. She climbs through a window, crossing another line she can't uncross. Inside, rage explodes without warning. Hands close around her throat before either can stop it. The struggle crashes into furniture, breath shredding into panic. Survival replaces guilt in an instant. He releases her suddenly, backing away as if burned. The room falls silent except for uneven breathing. She forces the words out, describing the theory through gasps. Another world, another choice, another outcome. He listens despite himself, anger folding into disbelief. The idea pierces where rage couldn't. She leaves the ticket on the table and walks out without looking back. For once, escape is not retreat. Days pass in numb routine. The planet grows brighter each night, impossible to ignore. She returns to work, scrubbing floors that reflect the sky faintly. Routine steadies what belief unsettled. Launch day arrives, broadcast everywhere. Crowds gather, hungry for proof. She watches the shuttle countdown alone, hands clasped tightly. Her future burns upward without her. An interview interrupts the feed. A familiar hollow-eyed man stands among the selected. He accepted the offer. Hope and loss braid together painfully. The shuttle vanishes into light. Applause erupts, then fades. Weeks stretch into months. The planet remains, unchanged by human ambition. She hears nothing from the mission. Silence becomes its own answer. For months after launch, the air feels different, charged. The sky presses low. A figure waits ahead, posture too familiar to dismiss. Recognition arrives like vertigo. The other woman steps into the light, identical scar, identical eyes. Time fractures. Neither speaks. The truth doesn't require sound. This version stands straighter, unburdened by memory she never earned. The difference is unbearable. Understanding settles in fully formed. The accident never happened there. Footsteps approach from behind the other woman. A man steps into view. He looks alive in a way grief once denied him. The sight steals her breath. Their eyes meet briefly, recognition flickering. Gratitude replaces anger. He nods once, a gesture heavy with closure. No words survive the moment. They walk past her together, returning to a life she can never enter. She remains, finally alone with the consequences she kept alive. Pain gives way to something steadier. Acceptance, earned brutally. She turns back toward home, choosing the only world left to her. The second planet looms overhead, no longer a promise. Just a reminder. She reaches the house and doesn't look back again. Some doors close correctly. Days resume their ordinary weight. Work, sleep, repetition. The sky slowly dims as distance grows again. The miracle retreats. She keeps the scar uncovered now. Hiding never helped. Night arrives without spectacle. Relief comes quietly. Sleep finally comes unbroken. No dreams of impact. Morning light filters in. Another chance, earned through loss. She steps outside, breathing deeply. The road ahead is hers alone. The second planet is barely visible now. Distance restores meaning. She keeps moving, no longer waiting for replacement or rescue. Her life continues, unmirrored, irreversible, and finally owned. Weeks later, the news confirms the mission's return. The world listens carefully this time, afraid of what symmetry might demand. Footage shows survivors stepping back onto familiar ground, shaken but whole. No miracles, no reunions promised. She searches the faces briefly, then stops herself. Not everything needs confirmation. At work, she's asked to stay longer hours. Responsibility replaces avoidance. She takes night classes quietly, sitting in the back, saying little. Forward motion doesn't need witnesses. The attic fills with books instead of excuses. Space becomes study, not escape. One evening, a letter arrives addressed in careful handwriting. Her hands don't shake this time. It's brief, and signed, grateful without forgiveness. That's enough. She places the letter in a drawer and closes it gently. Some things don't belong in the open. Outside, the second planet is now a pale speck, barely distinguishable from stars. Its power fades with distance. She no longer searches it for answers. Responsibility anchors her firmly here. A storm rolls in overnight, thunder replacing cosmic wonder. Ordinary danger feels manageable now. She helps a stranded driver push a stalled car, saying nothing about roads she once destroyed. The act costs her sore muscles and time, nothing more. Balance feels restored. Days later, she passes the old turnout without stopping. The road has reclaimed it. Memory still exists, but it no longer commands her direction. At home, she removes the sky photo from the attic wall. The space feels larger without it. She replaces it with nothing. Empty space doesn't accuse. That night, she sleeps deeply, unobserved by any mirrored world. The universe moves on, indifferent and vast. She does too, grounded, accountable, alive.